Here is the second part of that story with Green Lanterns, the Gary Gardner version, that follows up on Emerald Twiglets, the story where Green Lanterns, the Jordan Albert version, went evil. This is issue 21. Some of you might have noticed that it actually says it is a 4-part story up here, and that I started with what was listed as part 3. That is because, like most comics from the mid-90s, they overcomplicated a story. It is these last 2 issues that really form the Emerald Fallout story. The first 2 parts are by a different writer. They are by Chuck Dickens, and these are by someone who is not a woman, but has a woman's name. Really, the story started in part 3. All the setup was there. I would have covered the supposed parts 1 and 2 if they were relevant, but they are not. Anyway, we had a great first part of this 2-part story, and now we have a lame second part. The heroes facing Green Lanterns, the Jordan Albert version. This is this big epic moment. This is the closest that this series has ever had to having some purpose. We are putting Green Lanterns, the Gary Gardner version, up against his former friend and rival, who has gone irredeemably evil. And we have other characters like Lisa Simpson's here. And these confrontations, they should be meaningful and drenched with substance. But rather than write a really deep and intense fight that taxes on the characters physically and mentally, well, it is easier to just make every page a splash image and say that it is epic that way. We had a fantastic setup last issue, and it all peters out with a very quick story here that does not satisfy, since there is very little story here. It is just splash pages. We didn't even tackle the fact that Green Lanterns, the Jordan Albert version, him and Lisa Simpson's used to shag, and how this relationship would factor into any fight between them. And also that was definitely the case that he was being a paedophile. This issue is very, very lame. I want to see these fights expanded. I want some character to it. I want some story to it. I didn't want a quick sequence of 23 pictures that quickly gloss over this moment that the last issue built to so well. Splash pages are only momentous when they are not overdone, and this truly overdoes it. Stuff like this here, this doesn't need to be a splash page. And this here certainly doesn't need to be a double one. Both a fight and a story cannot be told that well within these limited parameters of everything being a splash page. Fights are something that sequential art really can do well, but when you limit yourself this way, a fight can only ever be big impacts like this and very brief. John Scott and Lisa Simpson's, they are defeated over the first few pages, having in the end contributed nothing. And if you are hoping that the Justice League or any of the guest stars are going to get to add anything, you're going to be left wishing. In 23 pages, you could have had so much fun with just these characters fighting Jordan Albert and having to accept the notion that their friend and former teammate has suddenly snapped. But there's just no room for character development when you render a script into a series of splash images. So our big fight is between the title star, Green Lanterns, the Gary Gardner version, and Green Lanterns, the Jordan Albert version. Gary Gardner is wearing his battle suit, and this could be an interesting matchup. We could see how his new armour fares against Green Lantern's powers, but it is just more double splash pages. That's another thing. To limit your story to just splash pages is one thing, but to cripple it even more by, again, reducing the number of images, by having several double splashes. I mean, now is happening here. This and the last one may as well have been one. And I really want to enjoy this fight. I think this is a fight I want to see. This is a fight I think most people want to see. And this has only ever been a disappointing, lazy endeavour. It seems like they didn't really want to do a fight issue at all. And so they did a really half-hearted one like this. And the art is decent, but having everything as a splash page means that sometimes the art being shown is something like this. This is quite a bad image. As a panel, you could maybe get away with it, but as a full-sized splash page, absolutely not. This issue really is beyond disappointing. I didn't recommend this at all. It really accomplishes the least amount it can. There's not even a real ending. Jordan Albert, he beats up Gary Gardner. He beats up everyone. And he warns them to leave him alone. And nothing comes of this. It ends here. I cannot think of any other word to sum this up than disappointing. It's not even that it is really bad or really shit. It's not great. It's just so disappointing. There is some nice art in there, but there is also some mediocre art. And it just feels like they squandered such a good story and such a good setup. After I properly read this, I reread it, I did a speed run, and I read this comic in less than a minute. Try and beat that. Let's make this a thing. Who can read Gary Gardner issue 21 the fastest? I have the world record currently, which was 56 seconds, 0.93. You have got to beat that. I reckon I can beat that myself. I stuttered a bit turning one of the pages. It's a very beatable record. This comic is wank though, so 7 thumbs up.